The GAO reports on staffing struggles at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Even more congressional retirements are announced. And a partial government shutdown ends. For now. For the week of February 9th, 2026. From Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., this is Health on the Hill, brought to you by Heart Health Strategies. I'm Matt Duckworth.
And you might say, well, now that 96% of the government is funded, it's just 4% what's out there. But it's a very important 4%. Because remember what the Homeland Security Bill covers. It's not just Immigration Customs Enforcement. It's not just Customs and Border Patrol. It is TSA. It's the agents who keep us safe in the airports and keep air travel moving. It's the Coast Guard. It's
kicking off this week's episode with news from Capitol Hill, where Congress approved a spending package on Tuesday to end the partial government shutdown that had commenced on January 31st, completing the fiscal year 2026 appropriations process for nearly all federal agencies. The $1.2 trillion funding package was passed in a bipartisan 217 to 214 vote. The bill included funding for defense, financial services, labor, health and human services, education, national security, state, and transportation, housing, and urban development through September 30th, along with funding for the Department of Homeland Security through February 13th. The agreement provides lawmakers with additional time to negotiate reforms to the Department of Homeland Security bill, in light of recent events in Minneapolis involving immigration and customs enforcement. The package contains nearly $117 billion in discretionary funding for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, in line with fiscal year 2025 funding levels, and rejecting the deeper cuts to HHS proposed by the President's budget request. The legislation also includes provisions to reform the pharmacy benefit manager industry and extensions of key healthcare programs, such as the Medicare Dependent Hospital Program, Medicare telehealth flexibilities, the Acute Hospital Care at Home waiver, and virtual cardiopulmonary rehabilitation services. The package also contains approximately $16 billion in congressionally directed spending, with healthcare-related earmarks set to receive $986 million.
Congress created the 340B program to make health care more affordable for low-income and uninsured patients. Hospitals and community health centers that qualify are able to purchase prescription drugs at a discounted rate. It's well-intentioned, but people are judged by actions, not by intentions.
That was the voice of Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee Chair Bill Cassidy, a Republican physician from Louisiana, who last week requested details about the business and revenue generation practices of 340B drug pricing program prime vendor Apexus. The letter is the latest step in Senator Cassidy's investigation into the 340B program. Apexus has held an exclusive contract with the Health Resources and Services Administration, or HRSA, as the sole 340B prime vendor since 2004. The letter highlights the rapid growth of the 340B program since that time, raising questions about where revenue is generated and whether it's being used for the original intent of the program. Cassidy poses questions to the company regarding its revenue and compensation structure, quote-unquote shareback practices, organizational structure and internal access controls for 340B data, relationships with parent company Vizient, engagement with regulators, and their role in increasing 340B utilization. Shifting to news from the campaign trail, where Representative Barry Loudermilk, a Republican from Georgia, announced that he will not seek re-election this year. Representative Loudermilk has served in Congress for more than a decade. He currently sits on the House Financial Services Committee and the Committee on House Administration. Representative Mark Amodei, a Republican from Nevada, also announced his plans to retire at the end of his term. Amodei has served in Congress since 2011 and is a senior member of the Appropriations Committee. In related news, Texas Democrat Christian Menefee was sworn into Congress last week. Menefee recently won a special election to represent Texas's 18th Congressional District, a seat that's been vacant since Sylvester Turner died in March of 2025. Menefee campaigned on a progressive platform that included support for the establishment of a Medicare for all single-payer healthcare system. Representative Menefee's swearing in brings the balance of power in the House of Representatives to 218 Republicans and 214 Democrats. The Government Accountability Office has released a new report detailing the Food and Drug Administration's struggle to recruit, retain, and train staff, and the subsequent impact on the agency's ability to conduct inspections. The staffing issues have arisen despite an increase in FDA funding from 2008 through 2024, money largely stemming from user fees paid by regulated industries. Nevertheless, GAO reports that in 2024, for example, FDA was not able to complete as many drug inspections as it had in prior years. The agency has also faced challenges managing other resources, such as its information technology systems, for collecting safety and quality complaints. More news from the GAO, where the agency has agreed to conduct a review of the recent Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices decision to no longer recommend a universal hepatitis B birth dose vaccine. The agency stated that it will examine, quote, matters relating to public health, economic, and equity impacts, unquote, in its acceptance letter to lawmakers. The GAO report was requested by Representatives Judy Chu, a Democrat from California, Kim Schreier, a Democratic physician from Washington, and 108 other Democratic lawmakers who argue that ACIP's decision was, quote, rooted in reckless conspiracy theories, not science, unquote. Winding down today, where Representative John Moolenaar, a Republican from Michigan, has sent a letter to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent regarding a Chinese pharmaceutical company's investment in Fastwave Medical, a U.S. developer of laser-based intravascular lithotripsy technology. Representative Moolenaar chairs the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party. He expresses concerns related to national security and urges the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, led by Secretary Bessent, to take immediate action. His letter reads, quote, Grand Pharma's predatory investment in Fastwave jeopardizes dozens of U.S. engineering and manufacturing jobs, undermines the availability of this life-saving technology for American patients, and weakens U.S. competitiveness in medical innovation, unquote. Final news today, where Senator Chuck Grassley, a Republican from Iowa, has written to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services urging Administrator Mehmet Oz to address the findings contained in the Office of the Inspector General report entitled, Most Children Enrolled in Medicaid Did Not Receive Timely Suicide-Related Follow-Up Care. The OIG discovered that in half of the over 250,000 unique hospitalizations or child emergency department visits for suicidal ideations or behaviors in 2023, children did not receive a follow-up visit in the week following being discharged. He requests a response by February 28th, detailing what steps CMS has taken in response to the report, whether CMS will require Medicaid programs to ensure children are seen for a follow-up within 7 days of treatment for suicide ideations, whether there are systems in place for hospitals to communicate their need for additional assistance with these issues, and whether CMS plans to develop or promote training models for providers to recognize and manage suicidal risk among children while they await specialist care.
Good morning and welcome everyone to the organizational meeting for the 119th Congress.
And I welcome everyone to the first Help Committee meeting of the 119th Congress.
Good morning and welcome everyone to the first meeting of the House Committee on Energy and Commerce of the 119th Congress.
The Finance Committee will continue its long tradition of addressing these matters in a manner that invites bipartisanship.
We end each week's episode with a call to order, where we lightning round congressional meetings and hearings in the near future that you need to know about. First, on Wednesday, February 11th at 10:15 a.m., the House Veterans Affairs Committee holds the hearing, Opportunities with VHA Reorganization. Second, on Wednesday, February 11th at 10:15 a.m., the House Energy and Commerce Subcommittee on Health convenes a hearing titled Lowering Healthcare Costs for All Americans, an examination of the prescription drug supply chain. Third, on Wednesday, February 11th at 3 p.m., the Senate Special Committee on Aging hosts the hearings to examine how Washington's rules drove physicians out of medicine. And last, on Wednesday, February 11th at 4 p.m., the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee gavels in a hearing titled Hearings to Examine Building a 21st Century VA Healthcare System, focusing on assessing the next generation of VA's community care network. Thanks again for tuning into this week's episode of Health on the Hill, brought to you by Heart Health Strategies. For more information on this week's healthcare happenings in the administration and on Capitol Hill, you can visit our website at hhs.com and click on the news section at the top of the page. You can subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Did we miss a story you wanted to hear this week? If so, email me at mduckworth@hhs.com, and we may include it in our next episode. Have a great week, and stay healthy.